What if I told you that one of the greatest hip-hop partnerships of all time almost never happened? That the smooth voice that defined West Coast rap was discovered on a mixtape in the backseat of a car, and that the person who made it all possible was a stepbrother who never got the credit he deserved? This is the untold story of how Dr. Dre discovered Snoop Dogg. A story involving a group called 213, a movie soundtrack called Deep Cover, and a man named Warren G who changed hip-hop forever. By the end of this video, you'll understand why this discovery wasn't just luck. It was destiny wrapped in family ties, street dreams, and one cassette tape that would change everything. Let's go back to Long Beach, California, 1991, before Snoop Dogg became a household name. Before Gin and Juice, before the Super Bowl halftime show, he was Calvin Broadus, a tall, skinny kid from Long Beach with a voice that sounded like butter melting over a hot beat. But Snoop wasn't alone in his dreams. In the streets of Long Beach, Area Code 213, three young men were making music together. Their names? Calvin Broadus, who we know as Snoop Dogg, Nathaniel Hale, Nate Dogg, and Warren Griffin III. Warren G, Snoop, and Nate were cousins, blood, family. But Warren G? He was the plug, the connector, the man with the golden ticket. See, the trio called themselves 213, named after their area code. They weren't signed. They weren't famous. They were just three friends with a dream, recording demos on cheap equipment, passing around cassette tapes, hoping someone, anyone, would listen. But here's where the story gets interesting. Warren G wasn't just Snoop's friend. He had a connection that nobody else in Long Beach had. A connection that would open doors nobody thought possible. Warren G's father had married the mother of a young producer who was making waves in the rap game. That producer's name? Andre Young. You know him as Dr. Dre. Warren G and Dr. Dre were stepbrothers. And that family connection was about to change everything. It's 1991. Dr. Dre has just left NWA. The group that put gangsta rap on the map has imploded. Dre is looking for something new, something fresh, something that can define his solo career. He's working on music. He's producing, but he hasn't found that voice yet. That perfect artist who can bring his G-funk sound to life. Meanwhile, back in Long Beach, Warren G has been recording with Snoop and Nate Dogg. They're laying down tracks, freestyling, vibing, and Warren knows, he knows his boy Snoop has something special. So one day, Warren brings a cassette tape to Dr. just a demo. Nothing fancy. Snoop's voice over some basic beats. Imagine this moment. Dr. Dre, one of the most legendary producers in hip-hop, sitting in a car with his stepbrother Warren G. Warren pops the tape into the deck, presses play, and out comes this voice, smooth, laid back, effortless, different from anything Dre has ever heard. Dr. Dre later said in interviews that the moment he heard Snoop's voice, he knew. He didn't even know what Snoop looked like, didn't know if he was young or old, tall or short, but that voice, that flow, it was undeniable. Dre immediately asked Warren, "Who is this?" Warren smiled and said, "That's my homeboy Snoop. That's me, Snoop, and Nate Dogg." And just like that, history was set in motion. Dre told Warren to bring Snoop to the studio. He wanted to work with him. No questions asked. Now here's where things get really interesting. Dr. Dre had just landed a major opportunity. He was asked to produce a track for a new crime thriller movie called Deep Cover, starring Lawrence Fishburne and Jeff Goldblum. This was Dre's first solo record after leaving NWA, his chance to prove he could stand on his own. He needed the perfect artist to feature on the track. And now, thanks to Warren G, he had found him. Snoop Dogg came into the studio. This was his shot. His one opportunity to prove himself to one of the greatest producers in the game. But there was a problem. While they were recording Deep Cover, Snoop was in and out of jail. He was caught up in the streets. Legal trouble. The kind of life that many young men in Long Beach were living. At one point, Dre really wanted Snoop's verse done. But Snoop was locked up. So what did Dre do? He called Snoop in jail, held the phone receiver up to the microphone, and recorded Snoop's vocals over the prison phone line. That's how badly Dre wanted to work with him. Can you imagine? One of the most iconic debut verses in hip-hop history, recorded over a jail phone call. On April 9, 1992, Deep Cover was released. The track opened with the words, "Tonight's the night I get in some shot, deep cover on the incognito tip." And then Snoop's voice came in. Smooth, sinister, unforgettable. The song didn't become a massive hit immediately. But in the underground, in the streets, people knew. The introduction at the beginning of the video said it all. Dr. Dre introducing Snoop Doggy Dogg. That introduction was the beginning of a legend. Deep Cover was just the beginning. Dr. Dre was working on his debut solo album, The Chronic. And now he had the perfect artist to feature all over it. Snoop Dogg was on almost every track. Nothing but a G thang. Dre Day. Lil Ghetto Boy. His voice became the signature of the album. When The Chronic dropped in December 1992, it changed hip-hop forever. It wasn't just an album. It was a movement. The G-Funk era had begun, and Snoop Dogg was the voice of it all. 1 year later, Snoop released his own debut album, Doggy Style. Produced entirely by Dr. Dre, it debuted at #1 on the Billboard charts. The first debut album to ever do that. Snoop Dogg had gone from recording demos in Long Beach to being one of the biggest rappers in the world, all because of a cassette tape, and a stepbrother named Warren G. But here's the part of the story that doesn't get told enough. While Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg became megastars, Warren G was left behind. He introduced Snoop to Dr. He was part of 213. He had the talent. But when Death Row Records signed Snoop, they didn't sign Warren G. Warren eventually found success on his own. His 1994 hit Regulate with Nate Dogg became a classic. He became a respected artist in his own right. But in interviews, you can hear the pain, the feeling of being left out, of being the connector who never got the credit. Snoop Dogg himself has said in interviews that Warren G is probably the best friend he's ever had, that only the two of them truly understand each other. But the question remains, would Snoop Dogg be Snoop Dogg without Warren G? Would Dr. Dre have found that perfect voice without his stepbrother bringing him that cassette tape? The answer is probably no. Warren G is the unsung hero of West Coast hip-hop, the man who connected the dots, the bridge between Long Beach and Compton, between street dreams and superstardom. So let's recap. In 1991, a young man named Warren G brought a cassette tape to his stepbrother, Dr. Dre. On that tape was a voice that would define an era. That voice belonged to Snoop Dogg. 1 year later, Deep Cover introduced Snoop to the world. Then came The Chronic. Then came Doggy Style. And hip-hop was never the same. This wasn't just about talent. It was about timing, about family, about being in the right place with the right people at the right time. Dr. Dre didn't just discover Snoop Dogg by accident. He discovered him because Warren G believed in his friend, enough to make that introduction. So the next time you hear Gin and Juice, or Who Am I? What's my name? Remember the hidden story behind it all. Remember the area code, 213, remember the cassette tape, and remember the man who made it all possible, Warren G the Connector, the stepbrother, the unsung hero of West Coast hip-hop. If you enjoyed this story, hit that like button and subscribe for more untold hip-hop history. Drop a comment below. Did you know Warren G introduced Snoop to Dre? Let's talk about it.